My name is Matthew Lazowski. As Ras said, I've been working with PSA for quite some time, meaning 2016, so that's 4 years already. And before that, I was working with another PSA system on the Dynamics CE platform with Assistance PSA from what's today Unit 4. So I started working with PSA effectively in 2012. So that's quite some time already. And I work here in the UK. I'm based in London, but I also work on projects in other countries. I work quite a lot with proMX in Germany on their German and Swiss projects, and I've had the pleasure of working with many people there, including Manuel Hanak, who was presenting earlier today, Sebastian Sieber, and other colleagues. And yes, so I've my experience not only here in the UK, but also in German-speaking countries, also in Nordic countries. And I'm originally from Poland, so I also worked on projects there, on CE projects there, and also I have some experience from other locations. So yes, that's me. And as you can see, approximately 20 PSA projects since 2016. So that's quite a lot. And as you can see, I've also worked for the last 2 years. I've worked quite a lot with proMX on their projects. So I think that's about me. I describe myself as a senior consultant and an enterprise architect, and I think I have the experience to prove it. So this topic is most of the presentation will be in the system itself. It will be more about the business process than the actual workings of it will not be very technical, basically. So what I really want to show you that actually Dynamics PSA is quite an advanced product that can help project managers, can help different personas to be more effective. So with as we know, Dynamics PSA is supposed to help bridge the gap between people who work in sales, people who work in delivery, people who work in finance, who sometimes seem to live on different planets. But with PSA, you can actually align the processes in those different parts of the business more. And one of ways of doing, a way to do it is look at one of the processes that probably should be aligned between sales and delivery is the estimation process. So when we, as a consulting organization that delivers projects, we need to be sure that our estimates are as precise as they can be. So what I'm going to show you today is the quote in the system, quote in PSA, and the project in PSA. Quote typically has been it's been an entity that is typically worked with by salespeople, while project is an entity that's worked by people in delivery, work with by people in delivery. So project managers, project management administrators, PMOs, who are working with projects, more set up projects. But those words shouldn't be separate. They should be related. So that's what I'll be showing, and I'll be also talking about particular ways of we need to get the estimates right, but also we have some other limitations. Typically, the client doesn't have has a limited amount of money. The budget is limited, so we need to often get the price right as well, which often means we need to get it lower. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the different ways of getting the price down when you work with quotes and projects, and I'm going to say that custom pricing, so using custom price list and changing the rates directly is a double-edged sword. Is something that can be very quick to do, but may not be the only way of lowering your estimate. This is very much related to what Manuel Hanak said earlier today, that with price lists it's easy to make a mistake actually and update the standard price list rather than your project-specific price list. But we're going to look at it in more detail in a moment. So I'm going to cover a couple of alternatives to actually changing the rates. There is this edge when the client comes in and says, well, can you do it for less? Can you do it for less? And then sometimes it is the easiest thing to do is to actually either just change the estimate on the quote or change the rates. But there are other things we can do as consulting organizations to actually yes, arrive at the lower price, but not cause problems further down the line when someone needs to deliver the project to that estimate. And I'll be covering those different options, different scenarios. So looking at how the scope can be cut down, looking at different roles on the project, as we can see here, also using non-billable roles, and I'll also talk about options that we are going to get when project operations becomes available. I'm sure many of you know that it is coming. We know that Microsoft has promised it the preview of the product to be available in June, late June, probably early July, and the general availability in October. So this is something that's coming. And for those of you who are not sure about project operations, there's obviously documentation from Microsoft, and you can read about it on LinkedIn, in my posts, and other people's posts. And basically, project operations will be the new version of PSA. So we are on PSA version 3. Project operations, you could say it will be version 4, but actually it will be more than that, because it will include some other components that we haven't had before. So project operations will include project for the web that we were looking at a moment ago during Nena's presentation. That was very informative. This is going to be the task scheduling engine for PSA. So definitely a very important component coming to PSA with, and as was said before, perhaps still project for the web is not as sophisticated as project online or project professional, but still it's an improvement to what we have had in PSA so far, and I think it meets requirements of a lot of organizations. But going back to the topic of my session, so what are different options out there we can use to lower the estimates for a project? So and some of them will include using a T&M quote line rather than a fixed price quote line. I'll explain why. And then we have the custom pricing feature, a very powerful feature, but we shouldn't overuse it, and other options as well. So I'm going to cover that too. And I have a couple of slides here about proMX that I want to show you as well. proMX is a partner based in Germany, but they also deliver projects in other countries, definitely German-speaking countries, but not only in those countries. And as you can see, they do also have, which is actually on the next slide. Well, first, the clients, you may have heard about the implementation of Software one of the largest PSA implementations, probably fair to say in the world, around 1,000 users. Are they here on this slide? There are many companies here. I can see them, yes, on the left-hand side, and on the top, well, second row. And then also add-ons that proMX have, which can sit on top of your PSA. So there may be some components which you say are missing, and that are addressed by those add-ons. So so I've done the presentation, I've done the PowerPoint slides, and now I'll move to the actual presentation in the system. And I want to start by showing you a quote lines, and then the project. So what we can see here is actually a standard quote. I haven't customized it much. It's just the standard fields. What you can see here is I will probably not be spending too much time on it. You have seen it. Basically, quote consists of quote lines, and then you associate projects to your quote lines. Typically, there are quite a lot of restrictions in PSA. How many quote lines you can have that are linked to projects. What I want to say is that if you have a project, you typically can only associate one quote line or maybe two quote lines. This is it because of the different restrictions. I will not be going into too much detail. So in my scenario, I do have two quote lines. And so when we, well, I think I closed it. Okay, doesn't matter. I can go to the quote header. On the quote header, we can see that we have those two quote lines. Right now, our project is linked to the fixed price quote line. So I'm sure most of you know that you can have those two different billing methods in PSA. The fixed price, where you bill the client for the agreed amount, no matter what. So if you do it for, if you spend less time than you planned, doesn't matter. The client will always be billed for 50,000. If it was time materials, this depends on how much work really was, how much time really was spent, and you bill the client for the total amount of time you spent on it. But we'll look at it in a little bit more detail as well. So that's my quote. We took a look at the quote lines. Let's maybe take a closer look. Well, let's just see what we have here on that quote line. So as you can see, we have the project that's associated. What other information we store on the quote line? So this is where the quoted amount is entered. And when I say it's entered, you can either do it manually. This is the simplest scenario, but this is what you would do if you didn't have PSA at all. You would be entering it manually here. So if you were using sales, you can still do it in PSA though. And you have other options such as creating quote line details manually. So you go and create quote line details manually. I will not be showing that option. For some companies it may work. Some companies may decide that on some quotes we don't want to create an estimation project. And then we also can track the customer budget here. So we can say, we believe the customer, I'm going to remove that value for now in the quoted amount. Let's say we do not have a value here, but the customer budget, let's say it's 50,000. We can also say when we hope to start billing the client. So if we believe, we are in June right now, maybe it doesn't make sense to start the project in end of June. Maybe we want to wait till September. So we're going to say the first. So actually, in my case, when we look on the project, we'll be starting at the end of August, just on the Monday. So that's why we'll be billing the client from the 1st of September. But let's take a look at this information on. So this is my project plan. So now I have jumped from the quote line to the project that I created earlier. And this is my project plan, which you build on the schedule tab on the project with with the different phases, analysis, design, so on and so forth, and then with particular tasks that are assigned to generic resources. So typically at the quoting stage, especially if this is a larger piece of work, you would like to estimate it in a little bit more detail. So you would be creating a project plan, you'd be creating those phases, the particular tasks that need to be completed, and then you would decide what kinds of resources you need. And at this stage, in some companies, people would decide what named resources you need, but actually a lot of companies say, actually, I don't want to decide about it yet. I just want to estimate it, how much it would take. Maybe the client actually will not be starting in September. Maybe they will start next year. So I just want to do the estimation, do the calculation. So I'm using those generic resources, as they are called, so a senior consultant. And in my case, I happen to know that there will need to be more than one. This will need to be delivered by more than one person, because I can see that there is some configuration and some development. It would take too long if I was doing first the configuration, then development. So I know I'm going to need a senior consultant A and a senior consultant B. And originally I assumed they will need to be done on site. So when I planned it before the virus started spreading, and I was assuming it will be done on site. And we can see it on some tasks. I have two resources, and this is not very different from Project Professional. I'm not saying it doesn't. This project plan doesn't give you all those options, and but you still have your predecessors, you still can assign resources, you can decide, you can specify what effort you have. So this is really useful. But what the system is doing at the back of it, so this is where actually PSA, I would say, is better from well, okay, it doesn't matter if it's better or not, but where PSA is really good is that it calculates the amounts for you. So you can see that in terms of the sales value, in terms of the value that we could potentially bill the client for, this is the amount that this is going to be. So we can see here particular tasks. Right now I'm using the same row on all those different tasks. So senior consultant on site, there are 16 tasks when we use that row, and we can see the price per hour is 120 euros. So per day, if this is 8 hours, this is 960, and the system calculates it nicely for me. We can see what the total is. I need to refresh it so that the columns are displayed nicely. And right now this is just displayed per year, but I could display it per month, per week, and so on. But just to keep it nice and simple, I just display it in one column. And so so we can see right now that the total estimate is 67,200 euros. And the client, we happen to know, because perhaps either the client told us or we believe that the client can only pay up to 50,000 euros for it. And what can we do? I mean, we could just go to the quote and just enter 50,000 here, and just send the quote for 50,000 without thinking about it. But what will be the consequences? The effectively, you could say we are. What happens then? Actually, firstly, perhaps we should look at other options that we have. If we just do it, it just basically we are selling our resources at a lower rate, and if this is a fixed price project, so if we sell it at 50,000, this will mean that our project profitability will be lower. So we estimated that the project is going to this is how much it should really cost the client. This is how much they should really pay for it. But if we sell it at 50,000, our project profitability will be lower because we have our costs as a company. We can actually take a quick look at those costs. So rather than looking at the sales values, we can also look at the cost values, and we can see that in this case it costs us 22,000. So even at 50,000, we would probably make a profit. But we would make a profit, but definitely it's lower profitability than if we were selling it for 67,000. So let's go back to that sales view. So let's look at what other options we have rather than just cutting the rate and this is something that to people who have worked who have sold projects and who have worked on projects, this is something that's quite obvious. But one of the reasons why I've come into the PSA world is to perhaps help both salespeople and delivery people to work together better. So if we just change the quote value to 50,000, then it's just passing the problem to the delivery team, who will then to the project manager, who then has to deliver that project, and that project will not be profitable. And actually, this may mean that his boss will not be very happy. People who are working on that project will be under a lot of stress. Well, actually, could be avoided to some extent. And we can do it in several ways. So, okay, this is our estimate. We can see it's 560 hours, and we know that it costs how much it costs. So one of the things we can do, we can look at the option of removing some of the items from the scope. Is post-go-fly support removing it a good idea or not? It depends. If the client doesn't have the budget for it, then perhaps it is a good idea because we can then maybe sell it to them later. And I know that a lot of companies try to include support in the original quote, which makes sense. But if the client doesn't have the money for it, perhaps this is something we could remove. So it's a matter of removing the tag. So I just need to click here, and I can click on delete. So this deletes that task, and the estimate will go lower accordingly. So in a moment we will see this disappearing, and when I come here, when I click on refresh, we can see already that our estimate has come down. But there are other options that I have as well. So why not use a customer resource? Typically the customer says, okay, so yes, we know that we need to do training, but perhaps we could do it ourselves. Maybe you just train the trainer, and we do we train our end users. So why not use a customer resource? So rather than using our senior consultant sitting on site, we can actually use a customer resource. So so I create a project team member called customer one, and this will be my customer resource. I need to remember to remove my senior consultant, and the DF was still 16, but when I again go to my estimates and I refresh them, the price will go down further. And what I can do then, I can look at other options, and now we're going to look at different types of resources. So yes, originally we planned to do it on site, but do we really need to do it all on site? Perhaps some of the tasks such as deployment to UAT doesn't really matter if we do it on site or we do it remotely. Why don't we do it using a remote role? So I can define those remote roles. So this is an interesting one. So basically this would mean that you need to define your price lists for both so for each type of resource. So for a senior consultant, you would have one rate for on-site and one rate for remote, which when you think of it, it may make sense. I mean, I'm not saying it makes sense for everyone, but I think, especially today's world, it makes a lot of sense. So let's just select now I'm going to choose a senior consultant remote. So I can remove the on-site one. I can use the remote one. Okay, and I happen to know that actually this is a lower rate, yeah. So I will not be going to the estimates every single time, but I just know that it will drive the estimate down. In a similar way, I can use an offshore resource. So this may mean the resource based in a different country could most likely, yes, be working remotely. Well, they could be also working on site, but they, maybe they have lower costs. So this means that we can also sell them at a lower rate. So let's maybe change that to an offshore resource, which I will have here. So I'm going to choose an offshore consultant. So this is dependent on, as I've said, on the setup of my price list, on my sales price list, and this is dependent on the setup of my roles. And how I define my roles is a separate topic, but if you really want to do it in a straightforward, out of the box you can do it by so you define your types of resource, so your junior consultant, senior consultant, solution architect, project manager, and then coming from different resourcing units, and then you could say that if the resource is coming from Germany, then you sell them at 1,000. If the resource is coming from Brazil, you sell them at 800 euros, for example, per day. So this is what you can do out of the box. But if you use custom pricing dimensions, for example, well, actually, before we go into custom pricing dimensions, you could also just, let's say you have five types of roles. So you have those which I mentioned: junior consultant, senior consultant, developer, solution architect, and project manager. And if you wanted to have your two rates, one for on-site and one for remote, you just multiply those by 2. So you would have 10 rows. And then you define your prices for those 10 rows. And this is straightforward. And if you don't have many rows, this will do. You don't have to use custom pricing dimensions. But if you have 25 rows, then actually multiplying them by 2 would mean that you end up with quite many. Then you should look at using custom pricing dimensions. But in my case, actually, I use the first option, so I just create those. So I create a row called senior consultant on site, and senior consultant remote, and I'm not using custom pricing dimensions. All right, and another option that I want to show is use a non-billable row or resource. So right now, so if I wanted to do it, I would just change it to a pre-sales consultant. So let's imagine that, to be able to sell this project, to be able to, where is my pre-sales consultant? Do I have a pre-sales consultant here? I should do. Okay, I'm just going to use customer for now. It's not exactly what I want. Yeah, basically I want to use a pre-sales consultant here, a non-billable role. So, you could imagine that maybe to get the cost down, we have to do this initial presentation at no cost. So then we can use that the pre-sales consultant role that I should be having here. And then also, you know, when we look at project operations, there will be some improvements. So we will be able to actually use non-billable tasks. Right now, unfortunately, and I know that this may come as a surprise or disappointment, it's not possible to actually for a given task to say this task is non-billable. You can't do it out of the box. You can use some workarounds, and yes, you could add a custom field, and then the custom field would drive some custom behaviors. But then still on your standard estimates tab, this would not be reflected. So the only way to actually to make a task non-billable in PSA version 3 is to use a non-billable role. But in project operations, we are promised that it will be done differently. You will be able to link tasks to items in your contract, and you'll be able to say which of those items are billable, which aren't. So we are really looking forward to that feature, and well, let's hope it will be there when project operations released in October. So now I've made my changes to my roles. Let's see what the estimate is looking right now. How's it looking? Well, it's still a little bit above 50,000. Let me just check. I seem to have a comment, possibly. So the question here was, is it possible to create multiple scenarios? So if I understand correctly, we are talking about, I think I understand the question. So so if the client is asking, okay, please give me 3 options, and then, well, in current PSA, we would need to create 3 estimation projects, and we would not be able to link it to the probably the same quote. So we don't have project snapshots out of the box that or baselines, as they are called in Project Online or Project Professional. So we cannot effectively have those multiple scenarios. So there is no versioning of the work breakdown structure. When we move to Project for the Web, I also think we'll not have it out of the box. But I think that there will be ways. There are ways. I mean, there are third-party tools already which offer that functionality. I think there's one coming from a partner in the UK, and also, you know, proMX, I think, is working on that. So this would allow you to actually have those different scenarios. All right, so let's just maybe, here we cannot use for this one we cannot use a non-billable task, so let's use a non-billable role, and let's hope this will make our estimate lower. Let me just, yes, I should be using the pre-sales consultant. No, actually I have a pre-sales consultant, I don't need to use a customer. It was just hiding at the bottom. Okay, so I can use my pre-sales consultant here. I'm going to also use here a pre-sales consultant. All right, and I think I wanted to use a slightly cheaper resource. So perhaps, you know, the configuration maybe doesn't have to be done by a senior consultant. Let's maybe say it can be done by a junior consultant. So I have a junior consultant set up here as well with a lower rate, and I don't need the senior anymore, so I can remove him. And now let's see how it has affected our estimates. So now I can click on refresh, and we can see now the estimates below 50,000. And let me just take a look at the comments as well. Okay, so I have a question here related to, is it possible to apply a discount, let's say 10%? Yes, and let me, I'm going to cover it as well. So now and I'll just remind myself what I still want to show you. So we've covered those options, but we also have those other options that I want to show you. So if the client is telling us, let me go back to the quote maybe. So if the client is, so right now our project was linked to that fixed price quote line. If the client is saying, and so we know that the customer budget is 50,000, and actually by changing those roles, we have driven the price down below 50,000. So actually we are in good place. But if we're still above, what we could do, we could actually tell the client, we'll not do it as a fixed price project, but we'll do it as a time material project. So again, this is another way of giving a discount to a client, because if we do it as a fixed price, this means that the risk is with us, with our consulting organization. But if we do it as time and materials, then actually this is as if we were, so if the client says, okay, do it for less, then we can say, yes, we can do it for less, but we'll do it as time materials project. So yes, we've estimated it and we believe it will cost X, but actually, if it costs a little bit more, we'll bill you for a little bit more. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to move that project to the time materials line. So first I need to remove it from the fixed price line. That's fine. And now I'm going to move it to the time materials line. So I'm just going to select the same project here. So this is a way, so actually we need to remember that actually if we switch between, this is not, there's no functionality for it in the system as such. It's something we need to know, that if we are offering a project as time materials, this is less risk, so we can offer it a little bit more cheaply. So so for example, and I'm going to show how to do it specifically. And then, there was a question about, can we give a 10% discount? Yes, we can. So custom pricing feature, that's the feature that we have in the system that I wrote is a double-edged sword. So this is something that is so easy to do that a lot of people do it and they overuse it. But what I've been trying to show is that actually, rather than do it straight away, you should look at all other options. But yes, let's imagine we need to use it. So out of the box, when you create a quote, the system is using a standard price list. In this case, we have those defaulting rules. I will not be spending too much time on them, but basically this price list, this standard price list got defaulted. And what I need to do is to use the option to create custom pricing. What the system does then is creates a copy of that standard price list. So if I now make changes to it, it will not modify the standard price list, but it will modify the price list for this quote only. And this is happening, so on the quote you need to do it manually, so you need to click on the button. When you come to the contract level, the system creates it automatically for you. And actually I believe it's a setting, so on the quote you should be able to say, each time when I create a quote, create a custom price list for me. So this would help to reduce the risk that someone by mistakes modifies the standard price list. So now if I want to see what's in that price list, yes, it would be really nice to display it here in the grid as Manuel Hanak was showing earlier. This makes perfect sense. Out of the box, I need to click on it. I need to click on it again. This will take me to my, actually not more. I just need to go to row prices, and here I can see my prices. So I can see I have resource in Germany, I have resource in Brazil, I have on-site resources, remote resources. Probably that list would typically look a little bit longer than that, but that's good enough for now. So if I wanted to apply a discount, yes, I could just click on update prices in here, and I can say, and if I remember correctly, I need to use a minus here. So if I want to decrease it, I type in -10, apply, and the system applies that discount for me. And then now, then if I go back to my estimates, this will now be also taken into account. So if I go here, however, here just refreshing it will not be dated, if I remember correctly. You'll need to use the update prices button. So we've changed our price list. Well, we created a custom price list. We changed the prices. I need to click on update prices, and then this will be reflected on the estimates tab. of the project. So now, it will cost even less. So it looks like we are already below what the client is ready to pay. Let me just take a look at the question. Is it possible to calculate the price, project-based resource and not based row? So basically, out of the box, the pricing is based on the row and the resourcing unit. So when we look at the price list, it's based on the row and the resourcing unit. If we wanted to, and effectively by using the custom pricing, the create custom pricing option button, we have now created a quote specific, or you could say a project specific price list. So this is only, the discount we've given is only applicable to this particular quote, which later is going to become a contract, and this particular project. If we wanted to actually give discounts to particular named resources, we would need to use a custom pricing dimension. Because as I said, out of the box, it's just the role and the resourcing unit that's driving our pricing. But we could have another column here for the named resource, John, Susan, Helen, and then we could be actually having our prices based on that. And on a particular project, you could discount them, as you want. But you would need a custom pricing dimension for it. This is described in Microsoft's documentation, so this information shouldn't be too difficult to get to. Okay, so I'm hoping, let me just double check. I think I've answered most of the questions, or maybe even all. So okay, so that's the other option to apply the discount. So use update prices. If you don't, well, sometimes you don't want to update them all. You just want to maybe go and maybe 99 is not the best price. Maybe you want to make 95. So you can go directly and make it 95. And so this is what you could also do in the previous version. In version 3, it's done quite well. If I understood correctly, this is not changing with project operations. So you'll still have this. And this is really powerful because, obviously you can do it in Project Online. You can modify prices, but not in such a robust way how you can do it here in PSA. All right, I think I may have another comment. Yes, that's absolutely correct. So there is quite a lot of scenarios to consider when we look at pricing. So what we are doing right now is the pricing on the estimates. So this is the estimates tab, and this is right now we are using generic resources, and the pricing is based on those two criteria that I mentioned. But if we then start using named resources, then the behavior is slightly different, and then the actual cost. So basically, let me think. Should we do it? No, actually, no. Maybe we can leave it for now. But basically, so if I have my project team members, and rather than having a senior consultant on site A, I try to find who's available, and then I assign it, let's say, to Matthew. Then the cost will be coming from Matthew's default row, so basically I need to make sure that the row is what I expect it to be on the project team member. But and this is only the estimation part, but then also at the actual, so then later we have the second part of the story. We have the second side of the coin is the actuals. So and the behavior that we need to understand the behavior there. But this is probably a topic for another presentation to really do this justice. So just to finish off with the different other options that we have. So we look at the custom pricing feature, but actually there are other ways of actually what is a discount. So payment plan and terms. So if the client is doing a prepayment, this is effectively, if the client wants a discount, we can also tell them, well, yes, we can give you a discount, but you need to pay 25% in advance. This again reduces the risk on our side. And then the payment terms. So even, if they pay after 30 days, not after 90 days, that makes a difference. Invoice currency as well. So I mean, we need to actually be quite. That's an important point. So we may not, or it will be very difficult to change the currency used during when the project is mid-flight. So basically, when you create your quote, you need to agree with the client what currency will be used for on the project. So basically, if you decide you will be billing them in you're agreeing to the terms in euros that you will be billing them in, and so of course if you're in Brazil or if you're in Germany, then there may be different exchange rates. Let's say some currencies change against each other. So it's a decision to make. Do I want to actually run this project in Brazilian reals, or do I want to run it in euros? Let's imagine my company is based in Brazil. Actually, our scenario, the company is based in Germany, but I'm using Brazilian resources. And let's say the client is based in Sweden. What currency do we use to bill the client? So this may impact okay, we can say, yes, we're going to give you a discount, but we will be running the project, we'll be billing you in our currency, in euros, not in Swedish crowns or other currency. Co-funding. So this is an interesting one. We don't have an option. So this is different budget sources. I don't remember the specific name that's being used, but basically this is saying maybe we can get some. Maybe we have a party that could chip in, could pay for some of the costs. Maybe Microsoft, if we are delivering a project in that technology, or if we are if we were, for example, a design company and we were designing a shopping center, maybe the manufacturer of a particular component could actually invest a little bit in that. This would drive the cost down, and we will have that option. We'll have that option, and hopefully in project operations, that's what we've been promised. And I know that certain third-party products include that as well. So this is what later results in split billing. So you define your bill to customers, and maybe you split the bill. So this effectively for your end customer, this may actually drive the cost down. And then the different rates. So this is about our presentations about discounts, but also about markups. So what you can do to actually, okay, now we have it looks like our estimate is below 50,000, but actually we also know that some of the work may need to be done, over time, because that's what the client says. We need to do it within 2 months, so maybe we will need to work over time as well. We know that just adding 5 more resources on it may not necessarily make it quicker. It may more sense to actually for our 2 consultants to work a little bit more for a limited period of time will be more effective than actually throwing more resources on it. And actually that's something that some people do. So you may have some, so you sign the contract with the client, and we say on the project we're going to use those consultants, and then we also offer solution architects, but and then in your price list, solution architect is not discounted, and then during the project you realize you need the solution architect, and the client says, yeah, okay. And so then effectively you can use your not discounted rate, probably not for long, but for some time. So so this is a way of adding a little bit of revenue. So these are different options we have. As you can see, it's quite a lot. It's not just only going to the quote and cutting the so let me just go back to the quote and just changing the number manually here on the quote amount. But now that we have, and let me go to the time materials one. Now that we've done all those modifications, and I'm sure you've seen it many times, what we can do now, we can import the estimates, not the fixed price one, the time materials one. We can import the estimates to my quote line. So if I need to go to the quote line details tab, and in here I click on import from project estimates. I'm just using default settings. Actually, perhaps no. Let's maybe just spend 1 minute. I know the time is running out. Just 1 minute on it. So rather than maybe sharing the whole project plan with the client, which some people say it's not a good idea, they could just take it away and do it themselves or with someone else. So maybe we'll just show them, just summarize it by row. We'll tell them how much we need and how many hours we need per row without telling them what specific tasks we will be doing. So we'll say summarize by, and we'll say just work level, or maybe let's say the phase level. Okay, and now what is happening? The system is importing those estimates for us from the estimates tab on the project to the quote line. So as you can see, what the client's going to see, that we need to do analysis, we need to configuration design, we need to do some deployment, testing, training, but we're not saying specifically what tasks need to be completed, which may be a preferred way of doing it. We can see that on some tasks we are using non-billable resources such as a pre-sales consultant. But to cut the long story short, we can see the estimates. Let me just refresh it, just see if this is what I was expecting. Let me go to my project again. Let me look at sales, update prices. Yeah, refresh. Okay, let's take a look, because these are my estimates. And I think that the problem that, why it's not exactly the same is that I think in my setup I'm saying that the offshore consultant is non-chargeable, which is not the case. I need to change it to chargeable, which I can do on my price list. So as you can see, sometimes you may have a surprise, but we should be able to deal with it. So just I'll go back to the quote and see what we can do to make it correct. So I can see, what the problem here is. I can see, let me just check if we have also some other non-chargeable lines here, which should not be non-chargeable. So this is the pre-sales consultant, that's fine. This is fine. This is fine, that's just a milestone. So the problem I can see here is with this row, everything else seems to be correct. So I need to think for a short moment. I think I may I may do it slightly differently. I'm just going to choose a different row here. And now our estimate is, practically speaking, I think it's either exactly the same or yes, it's exactly the same. So as you can see, we've used all those different ways to actually get the estimate down. So it's not only going to the price list and changing those prices in the price lists. So in here in project price lists, or just manually going to the quote line and changing it to whatever we believe is correct. It's actually much better to do it, to still do your estimate using that estimation project, maybe use different roles, do those different things that we can do, and then import the estimate to your project. And as you can see, sometimes you may still get some surprises. If you have some missing setup on your price list, you may get and I think that Gustavo wrote here that at the quote line you have chargeable rows. Quote line, chargeable rows. I can double check it, yes. So and then here I have a senior consultant remote, and it's showing chargeable. So I think that's the setup here seems to be correct. But let's not worry about it. I'm sure we will be able to get to the bottom of it. So that's pretty much it. And what I want to show you, it's just showing that PSA is quite a mature project when it comes to estimations, and what I really think is good, it helps people in sales departments and people in delivery who actually speak the same language work together a little bit more, and and then later hopefully this will end up and result in us having more profitable projects, and actually those projects being a little bit less stressful when actually the project manager doesn't have to work towards a unrealistic project estimate. And the same goes for resources who are given not enough time, but hopefully are given enough time to do a very good job, and then hopefully the client is happy, everyone is happy, and the project is profitable. That's what we want. We know that a lot of projects aren't, but some are. And I think that when you use PSA and you use it to prepare realistic estimates, we can have more such projects. So I think that's it from me, and I'm very happy to answer more questions if you have any.